Hello, I just wanted to do a bit of a walkthrough of my sketchbook because I actually completed it last night and I'm really pleased. So I'm going to show you what I've done. Oh, also, the lightings here is really odd because I'm in my conservatory and it's been snowing a lot, so there's just a glaring white light everywhere. So here we go. This is what I've been working on when I've been talking about Sketchbook and Sketchbook Project. It's actually a specific thing I've been working on. There's an organisation in New York called the Sketchbook Project, and what they've done is set up what they call a library of artists. So the goal is that the artists all have exactly the same sketchbook, this little brown cardboard bound notebook. Pardon me, I'm just sipping on a hot Lemsip at the moment because I've got a bit of a cold. So all the artists get exactly the same notebook, and then they fill it up and return it to the Sketchbook Project, and they keep an archive of all of the sketchbooks there, which are available for the public and schools and art colleges, community groups and everything to look through. And you can look through them just out of interest because it's nice seeing other people's art, looking for inspiration, looking for different techniques and things. What's lovely is they actually give these sketchbooks to community groups and schools for free or for a very low fee depending on the group, which makes sketching and art very accessible to groups that it might not otherwise be accessible to, and I think that's a lovely thing, and it increases the variety of different artists who are going to be in their collection. For independent artists like me, you have to buy the book. There's a fee for it, and it's more than you would normally pay for a small sketchbook. But being part of the project is a lovely idea. Now the sketchbooks are all coded with a barcode and a number, and the date that it has to be sent back. So that's why I've been pushing to get this completed so that I can send it back on time, which is the end of March. Okay, so now you know what the Sketchbook Project is, and let's have a look. And you can see how I've progressed. I just hope you can actually see what's in here. It's a little odd. I'm holding the camera and holding this and trying to get good light on things. Okay, so that's the first page I did. I opened it up, I picked up a pencil, and I did some mountains. I wasn't referencing anything at all, I just wanted to do a quick sketch of some mountains. Then, again, I did some sort of freehand doodling, but I wasn't really happy with how that was turning out. Did lemon, a little bit more happy with that. I quite like the detail and the shape and the shading. Penelope, my snake, partially worked, partially didn't. The head was nice, but then the proportions went a bit squiffy on the body. Now at this stage I was giving myself half an hour every day to sketch, so it's really just what I could get done in half an hour because I wanted to get into the habit of sketching regularly. And this is one of the nicest pieces in here. I did this while I was away in Dorset. We went to the Swannery, and while we were there they had a bird of prey exhibit on, and this is Ivana, who I believe is an eastern eagle, or a Russian steppes eagle. More doodling, sort of looking at ideas of open spaces and shapes and shading. So this is actually one of the struts of a chairback. A quick sketch which I did on the beach again while down in Dorset, just of one of the headlands some of the small beach buildings and the tower on the hill and a few cows. Again, rolling Dorset, these are, I can't decide if I like these or not. So these are a pair of fossils, 2 small stones that came off the beach, just fossils, and because of that they've got very odd planes to try and draw, lots of odd shading, lots of odd planes. I think I like them, but they're not pretty, but they're not bad representations. Okay, and this is where we start getting onto some exercises. So in an attempt to actually learn to draw and get more confident, I was lent this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, which is a textbook and sort of a companion text to actual courses that she runs as part of night courses and art schools and things. And the idea of this is that it's not just a technical manual of how to use pencils, how to use the paper. It's about how to understand the shapes and the lines and the shading that is in front of you. And the idea is that the left side of our brain tends towards very ordered, formulaic thinking. And sometimes that's very good and very useful, but when it comes to art it can be limiting. And the right side of your brain is more conceptual and non-linear. And when it comes to drawing, that is more useful. So based on this, the first exercise is to simply do a self-portrait, looking in a mirror. You have an hour to do this. And I was actually pretty pleased with how this came out. Better than expected, to be honest. Now the idea is that if you're stuck using the left side of your brain, you try and do things like draw an eye by drawing an eye shape. We have this preconceived idea of what an eye shape is, so we do that. And then it doesn't look right because we haven't actually drawn the angles and shapes which were in front of us. But either I didn't get stuck on that, or I just know my own face fairly well, so I was pretty pleased with how this turned out. Then I started doing more exercises from the book, so I'm going to have to go back a little bit. One of the exercises to do with sort of unlocking the right side of your brain, as they put it, is to look at things, to draw upside down, because then you're not seeing the item, you're more inclined to see the actual lines and shapes. So rather than seeing a person, you see the series of lines and shapes that make up that person. So we're given a copy of a sketch and told to reproduce it upside down. So this is how I drew it, just to show you how it looks right side up. And again, I'm pretty pleased with that. I think that worked out fairly well. Same sort of thing again, but with something a little bit more complicated. If we could. There we go. No. I'd like to show you this. There we go. So that's a knight riding a horse. And again, the right way up. But it was drawn upside down. And again, I'm really pleased with how that came out. There's some issues with proportion down by the head where the lines didn't quite meet up, and that's why I didn't quite finish it. But overall, it worked out really nicely. These exercises actually started to give me a lot of confidence, which was great. There were some odd exercises which were sort of just free drawing, doodling, trying to trace the pattern of the lines in your hand, the creases in the palm of your hand. Really tricky. And then I just carried on doodling. Another early drawing in which you try and draw your own hand. Something I've done before actually, so I didn't find it daunting, and I'm fairly pleased with how that worked out. Just following the shapes, trying not to draw a hand, trying to draw the shapes in front of me. This is an exercise in negative space. So for this, rather than drawing the outline of the chair, I draw the outline of the negative space. So I drew this inside shape. And by doing so, you end up forming a chair. And that's why there's a lack of lines and detail in some place where different lines intersect. It's because I was only really concerned with those negative shapes. And again, this is to do with drawing the lines and the shapes that are in front of you instead of trying to draw a complete item. And I found that really useful actually, and again it made me much more confident trusting my own senses. Another exercise in drawing upside down and trying to copy sketches. This is a really tricky one actually. It's a pair of legs on somebody who's lying down but with the knee bent, so you've got lots of different perspective coming into play. It's not perfect, but it was fairly good, quick sketch. Again, I only took about 20 minutes, half an hour to do this. For some reason, while I was working on this, I got into my head that I wanted to learn how to draw quickly, so I often gave myself time limits of half an hour or so to get things done. So this was another exercise from the book, which is to work on perspective and straight lines. So it was to sit in the room you're in, pick a wall or a location, and to draw it, trying to get the perspective and distance right. So this is essentially looking through the doorway into the kitchen. And I didn't finish it off, again, because of that self-imposed time limit. Some of the perspectives and angles are wrong, but I think you get a really good sense overall of how it works, of the depth of the room and what's in there. Another sketch I started just when I didn't know what to draw, so I started drawing what was in front of me, and it's, you probably recognise that as an LED storm lamp, which is broken, doesn't have the glass on. It's a bit wonky, but quite happy with that, how that turned out. It's recognisable, it's got a good feel to it, nice, like the shading. I did a portrait of Dre. I think I could have done better on this. Some parts of it worked really nicely. I like how I got the eyes and parts of the expression, but face shape isn't quite right, lips aren't quite right. But overall, not bad for drawing somebody who was sitting in front of me as opposed to drawing from a photograph. This was, again, another very rough, quick sketch. I gave myself a time limit of 20 minutes to half an hour to do the landscape as seen from a window of the hotel in Portmeirion. So it's quite rough. I wanted to focus on using quite strong, bold lines rather than shading, just to get a feel of how to do that. I think it's worked out okay. It's not pretty, it's not ideal, but it's a good warm-up sketch. I started wanting to just draw things that I like, that I find interesting. I really like wind turbines, so I drew some. I used a couple of reference pictures. This is no particular scene or area, this is just me referencing what they look like, and some proportion and perspective work. I've got more wind turbines here, some close-ups of the blades, a little bit thin and weedy, but and trying to get the scale of them, so starting at the bottom, looking up, and not even getting to the centre of the blades, we just get the bottom of one blade. And I quite like that one actually, that's sort of given me ideas for future drawings. Another portrait of a friend, this time from a photograph. I did give myself about an hour to do this, so it's not as good as it could be, but again, I'm pretty happy with it. It's recognisable. I think some of you might recognise her, and certainly she liked it, so that's nice. To just work on doodling. I've been reading some books up from comic artists and illustrators, particularly who do sci-fi, and the tips that a lot of them give are just draw shapes, draw lines, just doodle and see what comes of it, and sort of having that freedom when you are doing sci-fi and fantasy works to be able to draw anything. So I did these doodles, which are quite weird and freeform, definitely with some sci-fi influences, but I really like them. I think they worked out quite nicely for things from my head. And then I started going backwards to fill in the pages. A little solar punk eco house, because I really like architecture, I really like solar punk. Portrait of a horse I ride called Charlie. I did this only the other day. Again, quite pleased with it. Could have done a bit better, but I actually lost the photograph before I finished, so I had to finish it from memory. I think it worked out. This is a page I've been working on periodically when I've not had much time or energy to draw. So I've just added a single small thing to this, and it's just a collection of different aids for disability and chronic illness. So walking stick, pillbox, knee support, asthma inhaler, CPAP machine. That one's a magnifying glass, ironically, which is difficult to see, and a hearing aid. There's a bit more space there, so I actually might fill that out a bit more. If you've got any suggestions of living aids for chronic illness and disability that can go on here, please let me know. Oh, this is a rough doodle I never finished. This is probably the one fail page that we've got here. It was supposed to be a cliff top, and I didn't like it, and I never finished it. I may go back and do something, I don't know. Might be nice to have a reminder that sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay. This was the last one I did. Oh no, second to last one I did. I did this yesterday, and it is a robin feeding on a fat ball feeder covered in snow in my garden, and that's actually what I can see right now, minus the bird right now. But yeah, this is a view from my garden, which is lovely. And then, yes, this was actually the last one I decided to do, which was to practice some geometry and perspective. And this is actually based on a candle holder that I've got. So it's quite difficult to do all those different lines and keep them in the right place without actually measuring angles and measuring distances and perspective, but I think it worked out okay. It's a bit wonky towards the bottom, but it was definitely good practice. And then frequent tea drinkers, again, will probably recognise this. And it was just a nice little exercise in perspective. And I believe that's the book. So yeah, that's the sketchbook project done. Like I say, I may go back and make one or two little tweaks before I send it off, but I am pleased. I've completed every page in the book. I have sketched frequently. I haven't sketched every day, but I have sketched frequently. I am more confident in my drawing than when I started, and it's been a really nice project. So thank you for watching this long. I hope you found it interesting. inspiring or just a nice way of passing time on a snowy day in the UK.